This is the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla in the new Full Battle Rattle Studios.
Because it's imperative, you guys, that we as individuals do all that we can to live with industriousness and self-discipline and selflessness so that together as a whole, our nation can be restored to her exceptionalism.
With 2017 now here, Donald Trump's cabinet is taking shape. The president-elect is also getting set to select his Supreme Court picks. But there are other positions that will be considered as well, including the White House LGBT liaison. Today we talked to a man who'd be perfect for that job, and he has some unfiltered opinions on LGBT issues. Our good friend Thomas S. Schmitz, editor at Conservatives for Palin, coming up. Plus, we'll have the latest national and Alaska headlines in Sarah Palin news. We'll visit the Crow's Nest with Tanya Crow in California. Also from the Golden State, Kelly Carlson is on target. The Millennial Forecast with Sarah Hagmeyer is on the way from New Jersey, and a brand new installment of Liberty and Legacy with Tamara Colbert in Texas. Welcome to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. The Palin Update is sponsored by Full Battle Rattle. Full Battle Rattle, helping veterans suffering from combat-related disabilities through the healing power of music. Learn more at facebook.com/fullbattlerattle.abq. He is one of the editors at Conservatives for Palin, a contributor at Same Page Nation, and chairman of American Grizzlies United. More importantly, a friend of this show and a friend of mine, Thomas S. Schmitz, back on the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Thomas, how are you, sir?
I am excellent. Happy New Year to you.
Well, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you. We're so glad you're back with us, and you've always been a great guest and a great supporter of this program, and so much to talk about. And in particular, I want to talk about some LGBT issues with the new administration coming in. And before we get into some specifics with you personally, I want to talk about Donald Trump. It's a very interesting time here. A Republican president coming in. You go to his website. You can go ahead and purchase LGBT material, whether it be buttons or shirts, for Donald Trump. We haven't seen this from a Republican candidate or nominee, let alone a president-elect. And, people want to call him all these names and say he's, not inclusive and this, that, and the other thing. But everything's pointing to quite the opposite when it comes to the incoming president.
That is so true, Kevin, and it's also so unfortunate because there's always been this whisper campaign within the LGBT. I remember going to vote in 2000 with a friend of mine, a lesbian friend of mine, and in the voting booth, she was trying to move my hand and saying, "Oh, Thomas, no, vote for Al Gore because Governor Bush is going to put us into concentration camps." And I got to tell you, Kevin, I've never been to a concentration camp, and it happens every single time.
Yeah.
I was scrolling through Twitter just the other day, and some friends of mine were saying, "Oh, my goodness gracious, this guy, he's going to put us all in concentration camps." And I'm like, my goodness, really? 20 years later, and we haven't figured out that the whisper campaign is just that it's BS. And, it just reminds me of what Margaret Thatcher said, that when she would read the newspapers and see that they were calling her bad names, it would make her smile because she knew that she had won the political argument.
Oh, you got it. There's no doubt about it, and it's great. I think we see that mindset, from President-elect Trump, from Governor Palin, and others who aren't afraid of the bullying tactics or whatever you want to call it. And, I mentioned T-shirts and buttons, and that's all nice, and rainbow flags, and you could talk about that all day. But I think you actually look at the man himself, Donald J. Trump, and you look at the policies that he's talked about, heading into Washington. He's going to be better for gay Americans when it comes to their lives, all Americans, but we're talking specifically here. This isn't just, talking to get elected. I mean, he's actually caring about people who voted for him or voted against him after the election, unlike a Clinton.
Oh, absolutely. And just to be clear, my personal point of view is that I believe that we need to stop dividing ourselves into little boxes, into little categories of Americans. When I was little, I remember watching Schoolhouse Rock on Saturday morning, and they would have the Great American Melting Pot. And what that meant was that, people come from other countries, and you keep your customs, you keep your traditions and your orientations, but you're an American. And it was so exciting in the last couple weeks leading up to the campaign. I went to several Gays for Trump flash mobs in West Hollywood, California, and that's about 10 minutes from me because I live in proper Hollywood. And in West Hollywood, which is just the bastion of liberalism, there were Gays for Trump flash mobs, and I went to two of them, and I didn't have any eggs thrown at me at all.
That's awesome. That's great, and
it was really cool. And there were no Gays for Romney. I'm just saying.
And it's great that you were able to do that and have somebody like you out there. Now, having somebody like you out there and, things you've done over the years for Governor Palin and for the conservative common sense movement have been huge. And now we look forward to this new administration and, people talking about the cabinet, of course, and these high-profile positions that are, going to be, talked about and the Supreme Court and everything else. But there's another position. I don't know that everyone may or may not know about this, but it's the White House LGBT liaison. Thomas, tell us a little bit about that first and tell us about your thoughts on it from a personal angle.
Well, most people didn't know about this position, and actually I didn't even know about it until Obama appointed a transsexual, and her name is Rossi Gerspan, I believe, and the office itself, it's called the White House LGBT Liaison. It goes back to Bill Clinton, and we've had several White House LGBT liaisons. We've had Richard Socrates and Brian Bond and several other ones, and it is a position that has been in the White House for 21 years, and most people don't know about that. And the White House LGBT liaison sits in on a lot of committees, a lot of housing committees, and many economic committees as well, and just kind of anything where the where the president, him or herself, feel that the LGBT community needs some representation there. But again, I do want to stress that I come from a point of view where I believe that it's time for us to stop self-segregating ourselves into little boxes. However, we have to live with the cards that we've been dealt. And so right now we have this mainstream LGBT, and, they cause a lot of problems. I think it's really wrong to sue Christian bakeries, and I think that it's so important for the new LGBT White House liaison to be a different kind of LGBT White House liaison and to become a bridge and to end the self-segregation and this mentality of victimhood, persecution, and sex, really, because, the LGBT has been spoon-fed a false self-identity of sex for years. And, I don't think that sex is the most interesting thing about someone. In fact, I think it's probably the least interesting thing about someone. I mean, sex isn't really that interesting. Dogs do it, But again, we have to work with what we're dealt with, and right now we are divided into these little boxes, as disgusting as that may be. So our goal should be to assimilate and to become that great American melting pot the way we were taught when we were children. It's very sad we're not teaching our children that anymore, and I would love for us to be able to put the PTA moms back in charge, because a group of angry moms can fix anything. And let kids understand that there is a great American melting pot, and we should not be categorizing ourselves into little boxes. But for right now, we are, and we've got to deal with the cards as they're dealt to us. And so I really hope that the new LGBT White House liaison gets that, and gets that we're at a critical moment when a group of people has just been given a set of new rights. And I don't believe that the LGBT community as a whole, the mainstream LGBT community, I do not believe that they understand that with new rights come new responsibilities. And so when the Supreme Court says, okay, you're just like everyone else, come on, guys, you got to behave like everyone else too. And that's just part of where I'm coming from.
And you filled out an application, right? I mean, this is a position, White House LGBT liaison, that you'd be interested in.
You caught me. Yes, I did. I did apply. I did.
And I know that, I've heard from others, and, these aren't just people, who are friends of yours. They may or may not be, but, these are people influential who have really, been around you for years and see the qualifications that you would have for such a thing. I know you have letters of recommendation from those currently serving in office, a television pundit, someone from the Trump campaign, and, even some references from the chief of staff of a former governor. So you have some backing here. Why would you want to do this, Thomas? And if you were able to do it, I mean, you already mentioned this a little earlier. I mean, I think you really do support a lot of the things that President-elect Trump has talked about that would unite us instead of divide us.
I share President-elect Trump's vision of uniting the country, but I believe that in order to unite the country, the current direction of the LGBT movement must drastically change. If I were lucky enough to be given this privilege, really, of public service as a White House LGBT liaison, I would give a voice and a platform to the forgotten gays who are shunned by the mainstream LGBT. I would make sure that the forgotten gays would kind of, I guess I'll just go ahead and say it, would replace the radical and vulgar voices of the current LGBT movement. And I would work really hard to make sure that the forgotten gays and the Christian gays and the normal gays who just get up in the morning and take a shower and drink some coffee and go to work and pay their taxes and don't run around naked at gay pride parades and don't, say horrible things on Bill Maher's show. I can't even say some of the things that Dan Savage has said. I wouldn't put the viewers through that. It's vulgar and vile, and I would replace them. I would replace those radical and vulgar voices of the mainstream LGBT with the forgotten gays, just the regular, everyday, garden variety gay women and men who don't see themselves as gay first. They see themselves as Americans. My top priority would be for the gay community to assimilate into society as individuals with a real self-identity that's not based in sex and victimhood and persecution. And the current LGBT leadership, it denies the gay community a true self-identity, and I think that is so wrong, not just psychologically, but they're exploiting people for profit too. It's really easy to send out an email that says, "Give us $5. This person is going to take away your equality. Give us $5. This person is going to give you equality." And for decades this has been going on. The gay community has been used by the commercially driven LGBT for profit and psychologically, and they'll continue to exploit and discourage assimilation until the LGBT movement's direction is changed. And it's time for the gay community to understand that with their new rights come new responsibilities. And what I would do is I would use elements that we used to when the film The Undefeated came out, and we were able to fill the theaters on opening day. And the same movies that came out that weekend, if you remember, Kevin, were Winnie the Pooh, the Transformers, Harry Potter, and I think Star Wars too. And we did that without any money. And the model that we used was really simple. It was word of mouth, it was Facebook, it was Twitter, and it was the old-fashioned telephone. I would do things like reaching out to the log cabin and kind of ignoring the radical and vulgar voices of the mainstream LGBT and giving a platform and a voice to the forgotten gays. Like my dear friend Xander Gibb, who has a Christian gay podcast out of New York, and my friend Dan online, he's known as Small G Gay. And these are both two very good Christian men who happen to be gay. But they don't see themselves as I'm a gay man. They see themselves as Americans, and they're proud to be Americans. And so I would work really hard to make sure that the forgotten gays replace the vulgar and extreme voices of the mainstream LGBT. And my domestic partner and I, we're intergenerational. He's 68 years old and I'm 50, and he's watched the gay movement from its inception to its current form. And I think that alone, that timeline of the gay movement, is such a valuable asset, and I would defer to that while working to change the direction of the mainstream LGBT. And I really honestly believe that the new White House LGBT liaison has a golden opportunity. And I believe that very few people see this, and very few people understand that it's really time to reshape the LGBT movement for the betterment of all Americans. Because, gosh, should I say this? I'm going to say it. Okay. About 50 years ago, there was another group of people who were given new rights, and their leaders were irresponsible, and their leaders discouraged assimilation. And so I would just say to every American, if you don't want to put on your TV in 25 or 50 years and see the nice little quaint towns of West Hollywood and the Castro in San Francisco and the Village in New York City, if you don't want to see those towns burned to the ground on your television like we did over the summer in Ferguson, I think it's time for some new leadership in the LGBT community who will allow them to assimilate into society. And I know that probably sounds very controversial and crass, but it's the truth. That's sometimes the truth isn't pretty, and that's just how it is. And I think it's so important that the LGBT understands that they got some new rights last year, and with the new rights come new responsibilities. And first and foremost, the responsibility is to assimilate into society and to stop self-segregating and to stop seeing yourself as a victim, stop seeing yourself as being persecuted, and understand that in America you can do anything. You can become anything. America doesn't promise equal outcomes. It promises equal opportunity. And yes, gay people have that too, but you have to stop thinking of yourself as being gay first. You just be an American. And, that goes across the board for any demographic. I mean, I personally find it so disgusting that in 2016, we categorize ourselves by race, by orientation, by gender, and by religion. I think we're better than that. I mean, there's only one box instead of all these little boxes, and there's one box, and it's the American box. And when we start seeing that we're all in the same box, that's when we'll start seeing that we have less divisions, because there is more that unites us than there is that divides us. I'm a firm believer in that, and I'm a firm believer in the power of one, too. And so that's why I think that the new White House LGBT liaison has a golden opportunity, and I really hope that whoever President-elect Trump chooses, whoever she or he may be, sees this opportunity and then seizes this opportunity and reaches out to the log cabin and Republicans and ignores the vulgar and extreme voices of the mainstream radical LGBT and gives a platform to the forgotten gays, just the regular gay people like my good friend Xander Gibb on X-Rad and my good friend Dan, Small G Gay, on his podcast. Give them a voice. Let them talk, because they've got a lot of important things to say that I think would be good for all Americans, not just gay Americans, but all Americans. And that's just my hope and my prayer, my New Year's wish, that whoever the new White House LGBT liaison is, that they see this golden opportunity and they just grab it and go with it, and they've got my support.
You're not passionate about this at all, huh?
No, not at all.
All right, good.
It's so serious. We're so divided right now. We don't have to be.
No,
and what you a little bit of courage.
And what you mentioned about putting us into boxes. I mean, in many ways, it's worse than ever, and it's in all walks of life. Thomas, we have so much more to discuss. I mean, you're just a great guest, and this is very interesting and very important. And I want to get into some other issues regarding LGBT issues and also just American issues. And could you come back with us again next week?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to help in any way that I can, Kevin.
All right, let's do it again. Let's have Thomas Schmitz back with us next week. In the meantime, check him out on conservatives4palin.com. And we are excited to have Thomas back again. Thomas, thank you so much.
Happy New Year, Kevin. Have a wonderful, wonderful night, and a Happy New Year.
For more from Thomas S. Schmitz, visit conservatives4palin.com. Now it's time for Sarah Palin News, headlines, and more about Governor Palin. Christmas greetings from Alaska. Palin stands with Israel. The governor calls for the U.S. to put the UN on the chopping block. Yearning for Chick-fil-A in the 49th state. A Hollywood actor recognizes our troops. Palin highlights Trump's generosity. A cartoon that sums up liberal logic to a T. The problem with millennials, and 16 going on 17. A happy Palin New Year. To read about all these stories, visit the Mama Grizzly Radio Facebook page. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page. Follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA and check out sarahpack.com.
Now let's head to the crow's nest. Here's Tanya Crow.
Thanks, Kevin. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. I wanted to talk about hope and expectation or desire for something to come, a feeling of trust. During the election time, when I would be talking to friends of mine in the big blue state, they would say to me, how could you vote for him? He might this, he might that, futurizing what could be. I feel like I've been in a car with someone behind the wheel that basically drove me into a ditch. And you're basically asking me to vote for somebody that there's no hope for me in that direction because I'm literally muddy in a ditch. So the idea of doing something that is unknown, it was actually exciting to me, and I felt hopeful of the shift, the change, the hope of a new future. And to me, that's really the power of hope, is the ability to make changes. And our voting rights are a huge way that we can do that. And there's been a whole group of us that participated in that vote that made the change that's now about to happen for all Americans. And I think as a human being, sometimes we want to go with what at least we know what to expect. It's easier to go for that than something that is an unknown. And I think a big part of my vote this year was about that, was being on the edge of something brand new, revolutionary, and what I do believe will be a return to what this country is truly about, which is that anything is possible. And I think hope has a lot to do with making things that seem impossible possible. Till next time, this is Tanya Crow with Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tanya Crow on Mama Grizzly Radio. More from the Crow's Nest next week. Now, on target with Kelly Carlson.
Thanks, Kevin. So, a knife versus a firearm for self-defense. Now, this is a subject that is often discussed and debated, especially with women who are not comfortable with firearms, which is completely understandable. I meet a lot of women that feel that way, and a lot of them carry a knife. Now, if I could just offer my own opinion in this, being married to a knife maker, but also being very versed in knife fighting myself, I don't recommend women really carrying a straight blade in particular for self-defense. If women do any sort of self-defense training, I think they will find out very quickly that we aren't as strong, we have weaker wrists, we have weaker hands, and our reach typically isn't as long. I had a situation in 2012, I had a stalking situation for a year, and there was one particular night where I had a blade on me and something happened, and I needed I was afraid. I was very afraid. But I found myself getting rid of the knife. And I will tell you why. At that moment, I didn't understand where that line was because I wasn't physically being assaulted yet. And it wasn't clear to me, when do I pull a knife out? I don't want this guy to see it, but I also don't want him that close to me because he has so much of the advantage in that situation that close to me. We would have to be in a physical scuffle for the most part for me to deploy and use my blade. I don't want that to happen. It dawned on me at that moment I'd rather have a firearm. Also, the legality of a blade is a felony. And of course I'm going to conceal it for the most part, which doesn't make the legality of the situation any better. I highly recommend if a woman is going to carry a knife, she take a close look at the retention of the blade. I would recommend a pistol grip punch blade of some kind because a straight blade, it's going to be taken out of your hands most likely. You don't want to get that close to an assailant where you're going to use a knife. You want that extra distance. You don't want him in your reactionary gap. I mean, it's curtains for the most part, not every single time. But I'm not going to roll the dice. I definitely recommend women look into a pistol grip knife if they absolutely insist on carrying one. If not, I really think a firearm is your best bet for safety. Now, what comes with that is a tremendous amount of responsibility. You have to be good, you have to be proficient, you have to know how the mechanism works, and most importantly, you have to practice your safety. But you know what? Nothing about self-defense is easy. Nothing about it. But it is worth it to be safe, not only for yourself, but for your family and everybody around you. This is Kelly Carlson for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tune in for more On Target next week. It's time for the Millennial Forecast. Here's Sarah Hagmeyer.
Thanks, Kevin. Hopefully everyone had a very Merry Christmas. Recently, an associate professor of politics and global studies at Drexel University went on a very disturbing Twitter rant. At a university where it costs well over $34,000 a year to attend, his followers learned that all he wanted for Christmas was a white genocide. Not a white Christmas, a white genocide. This man is a priding communist, a Black Lives Matter enthusiast, an American traitor, and of course, a Donald Trump hater. Or maybe just next year's casting as Scrooge. According to this teacher's online biography, he is apparently an expert on Venezuela, race, racism, prisons, and policing, as well as how race is associated with suspicion and guilt. Yet he calls for a white genocide, which is blatantly racist, and he's proud to call himself a communist, even though communism has failed miserably. This professor rightfully has his freedom of speech and his right to have his beliefs and opinions. But what is more disturbing than his actual tweets is the fact that this man is actually allowed to teach. This professor is a prime example of the growing problem on college campuses across America, where a majority of the teachers are staunchly and excessively liberal. When too many professors are alike on the same campus, that's when snowflakes get their pathetic coloring books, students are encouraged to want free tuition that they'll end up paying in taxes, PC culture ruins individualism, and administrators host safe spaces for students to escape from the actual real world. What's scary is that we can forecast most millennials won't be bothered by this at all. If anything, they will agree with this professor that the world would be better with less white men. Since snowflakes believe America was founded on white supremacy, they probably wouldn't mind a genocide on whites anyway. it wouldn't be deemed as racist or anything. For Mama Grizzly Radio, I'm Sarah Hagmer, and that was your Millennial Forecast.
And next week, we'll have a new edition of the Millennial Forecast right here on the Palin Update.
Now, the Palin Update with Kevin Scholla presents Liberty and Legacy. Here's Tamara Colbert.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Christmas is the most incredible time of the year just because it gives us an opportunity to escape from politics, from everyday life, and really get kind of outside of our selfishness and what we want. And I love it because it focuses on service and others and Christ-like behavior. And of course, I'm no different. I get caught up during the year and busy. And this year was a wild year in politics with a lot of hurt feelings and little snowflakes all over the country who are so traumatized because Donald Trump won the election. But what I really love is this year in Dallas, I really noticed so many people saying Merry Christmas. It was like the Christmas spirit had been unleashed times 100. And in the last 8 years, I honestly don't remember so many people saying Merry Christmas every single place that I went. Giddy, excited. And of course, as I watch Donald Trump and Melania go to church on Christmas Eve and a standing ovation breaks out in the church, I can't help but be excited about newness and new opportunity. And as we approach the new year, it is going to be a time of renewal. And I don't like using the word New Year's resolutions, right? I want to declare that we're going to be a better country, that we're going to work towards real solutions to make our nation better. We're going to work towards real solutions that will unite us under this country, this ideal, this American ideal, this freedom and liberty. And I am optimistic. I'm optimistic because of what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing from the grassroots, what I'm seeing as I'm out. And it's exciting. But Donald Trump as our president is not enough. And that's why I'm working with the Convention of States Project. We've already pre-filed in 10 states. It's exciting, including Texas. And we can't wait to get going. In Texas, our legislative session starts January 10th. But we are getting ready to pre-file in at least 20 more states in January and early February. What does this mean? We have legislators who are more motivated than ever to use an outside the Beltway alternative to put pressure on the Congress, but to continue what we started, to finish with getting to a convention so that we can propose amendments, that the states can convene, can get together to have a serious mom and dad discussion about how to put the federal government back in its place. A single president cannot do it with his pen and his phone because, as we know, every executive order that's done by the pen and the phone can be undone by the pen and the phone because that's how America works. If you want it to be permanent and make those fixes and put the checks and balances and everything in and strengthen our Constitution, it cannot be by a pen and a phone. It's got to be by legislation in a lawful constitutional way. And I love that. We've got 2.1 million volunteers, 104,000 volunteers here in Texas alone. Why is that? We're growing at a rate of 250 signups a day for volunteers and supporters because they see Article 5 as the only viable solution to the only viable outside the Beltway solution where the true interests remain with the American people. The true focus for liberty, the attention to the solution detail resides with the people through our states. And that's what we need to do is return that power back to the states. Could that be the most amazing 2017 Christmas gift ever? Returning the power back to the states? My goodness. It makes what the Democrats have done for the last 8 years, or actually not done, like kindergartners. And really they are. They've given us more debt, more welfare, more headaches, more division than any time in American history. What a shame. Obama could have been the great uniter in chief. Instead, he'll go down in history as the great divider in chief. So as we finish out this Christmas season, this holiday season, and head toward a new year, I pray for each one of you to be more motivated and inspired than ever before, to get involved, to participate, and to be optimistic and win and influence people all around you. You are the best champion for liberty. Sarah Palin can't do it. Todd Palin can't do it. Bristol can't do it. My goodness, Kevin Scholla and I and the other ladies that I am privileged to share Mama Grizzly Radio with, we can't do it. It's up to each one of you. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Tweet me this week. I'm around hanging with the fam at Tamara Colbert. Have a blessed week. Happy, happy New Year. Be optimistic. This may be the start of America's next great century. I'm Tamara Colbert for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tamara Colbert in Texas. Tune in for more Liberty and Legacy next week. And to learn about Convention of States, head to conventionofstates.com. The Palin Update, including Liberty and Legacy, the Millennial Forecast, On Target, and the Crow's Nest is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook. And follow along on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Tamara Colbert, at Tanya Yoga 13, at S Hagmeyer 2, and at FBR ABQ. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Tamara Colbert, Tanya Crow, Kelly Carlson, Sarah Hagmeyer, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Thomas S. Schmitz. And thank you for listening today. A special thanks to our sponsor, Full Battle Rattle. Visit Facebook.com/Full Battle Rattle ABQ. The Palin Update is produced by Lena Anderson, the Andy L. Kramer, and Lori Ann Lewis. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update right here on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day and Happy New Year.